And we continue at 1:05 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show. Broadcasting to you live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios. Mr. Randy Wangs at the sports desk in Culver City.
John, we've been getting a lot of discoveries at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com into the history of President Joe Biden. According to one of our listeners, Joe Biden was the third man on the moon.
Is that so?
Quite frankly.
Was it made out of green cheese?
He's a lion, dog-faced pony soldier.
800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Do we have them?
I'll let you know in about 10 seconds. We might have them. It doesn't look like it.
Okay, let's move on. All right, so Joe Biden is right now experiencing very poor poll numbers. In fact, right before we signed on the air today, I was looking at the Real Clear Politics average, and for the first time that I can remember, Donald Trump has officially taken the lead in the average of the polls and is now the likely favorite to win the presidency in the 2024 election. The only person polling below Joe Biden is Vice President Kamala Harris.
We are doing it.
How could that be?
Which is why so many people are now saying that Kamala Harris should be pulled from the ticket.
I will repeat myself.
David Ignatius from the Washington Post, who put it out in an op-ed piece. The New York Times put out a similar piece. And now people are chewing on that fat, trying to figure out if, in fact, California's former attorney general is going to be dropped from the ticket. That subject came up on The View. Let's listen to what they had to say.
Over the past 5 elections where you've had a Democrat win, they needed the black vote. 91% of African Americans voted for Biden and will continue to vote for Biden if Kamala is his running mate. I would be very careful, President Biden, about getting rid of Kamala Harris because we will not support you.
Wait a minute. Hold up. No, your opinion is valid and beautiful and all of that. But when was the last time you saw anybody get rid of a vice president?
Nobody does. That's the thing. It's a lot of Washington speculation.
No, it's not something you would do.
If it was Biden.
People watch this?
I don't know why, but people do.
If it was Biden and Trump.
If Biden gets rid of Kamala Harris and inserts someone else, he will lose the black vote.
Even if it's another black woman like Val
We're not interchangeable.
But regardless,
we're not interchangeable.
And no one's saying you are. You would vote in an election against Donald Trump and Joe Biden and a black woman. You wouldn't vote.
I think that but
I want to know the answer.
I don't want to white-splain, but you might be underestimating the black community voter.
I don't think I am.
Oh, joy.
You would really sit out and elect. You said I was throwing my vote away if I wrote in another Republican.
I don't.
But you're not throwing away your vote by not supporting Biden if he drops.
I'm sorry, y'all. She is not going anywhere. Let's start with that. So this is a lot of hypothetical BS meant to make your mind explode.
Wait, can I jump in?
Take a breath.
That's why we chose the topic.
Well, let Sarah talk. Okay.
The whoopster just got over COVID, and she was having none of it.
And you notice Joy Behar just told Sonny to shut up? Let Sarah talk.
Well, Joy rules the roost over there. I think she's the longest-running member at this point.
I'll tell you, the older she gets, the more she looks like Dustin Hoffman and Tootsie. Have you ever seen her do stand-up?
I have not, but I hear at one point she was very funny.
I would love to see her do stand-up. I've never seen her do stand-up. She can be funny if she's trying to be funny. When she's talking about politics, not so much. All right, joining us to talk about this and much, much more is the host of the Steve Hilton Show and the founder of Golden Together, which is an organization working to develop practical policy to solve California problems. You can find him online at goldentogether.com and follow him on Twitter at Steve Hilton X. Steve Hilton, welcome.
Great to be with you. I'm just laughing along there with Joy and the gang What a fun time they've been having talking absolute nonsense.
Now, what do you make of this, though? Because California's former attorney general is someone who is polling very low right now nationally. She's a drag on the ticket. And when you have a candidate who is 80 and going to be 82 at the time of the election in 2024, if your vice president is unbelievably unpopular, then that's something you need to consider because that could cost you the election. However, it seems like many people in the news media and within the Democratic Party have determined that they can't make a change, even if that would be politically costly for them not to make a change. They can't make a change because if so, they're going to be accused of sexism and racism.
Yes.
And you just heard from Sunny Hostin on The View. She said there will be punishment if she's dropped from that ticket. Your thoughts?
Yeah, but the thing about all this is that basically, to be blunt about it, they're screwed either way because they're already losing the black vote, even if they don't make the change. So let's just take that. I mean, there was data just this week in the New York Times, really interesting article about how Biden is losing not just the black vote, the Latino vote as well, like really big drops, significant drops from where he was in 2020. That's already happening, and it's particularly happening among younger black voters and younger Latino voters who are fed up with the consequences of what they're doing. So that's already happening. So, and if you talk about the ticket and being a drag on it, the whole ticket is a drag on the ticket. So there's no good outcome here. There's no good option for any of them. That's why they're all panicking. That's why you see the David Ignatius. That's why you see all this chatter. You saw, what's his name, Joe Scarborough or Morning Joe, saying that every single conversation with a Democrat these days is, what are we going to do about this nightmare? Biden can't do it. He's too old. He's going to lose. We're going to end up with Trump again, et cetera, et cetera. They're paralyzed because they don't have a good option.
They don't have a good option, and Joe was the one that boxed himself in because he said it was going to be a woman as his running mate, and then he amended it after South Carolina saved his bacon to a black woman.
Yes.
And he had Kamala Harris and Karen Bass on the short list, and he made the wrong choice. He picked Kamala Harris, and now he's stuck, and now he can't get rid of her, and Joe did it to himself. Joe has no one to blame for this but Joe.
Right. Exactly, and he is responsible. That's exactly right. And it is also true that they can't just dump her. There'll be a huge outcry, but they know they need to. But the whole party thinks they need, basically, behind the scenes, that they got to dump both of them. I mean, that's what David Ignatius was writing. It wasn't like get rid of Joe so Kamala can be the guy. It's like, no, Biden-Harris, the ticket needs to go. That's what they know that both of them are a disaster. That's why it's so hilarious just to watch this pantomime play out. They're all kind of standing there, well, what are we going to do? He's a disaster, she's a disaster. We can't get rid of him. We can't get rid of her. What are we going to do? And so they're paralyzed and they're running out of time because if they want to make a change, it's basically going to have to be in the next month. Otherwise, it's just too late to get people on the ballot and so on. And in the middle of all this, you've got to remember the most important factor, Biden himself is a totally vain narcissist. He's been desperate to be president since he was in his early 20s. For 50 years, he's been plotting and scheming to get to the White House. It's finally there. He doesn't believe in anything. He's completely going to go wherever the power is in his party. That's why he's completely captured by the far left. He doesn't believe in anything except being president. That's all he's ever cared about. And he's not going to give that up now. He's obsessed with the idea that he's the only person that can beat Trump. That sort of vanity kicking in there. Jill doesn't want to go anywhere. You know, if he just won't do it, how do they get rid of him? That's the terrible reality that the Democrats are facing.
Well, let's just look at this for a second like this is a game of Survivor, because I think that's how a lot of people internalize
Exactly.
this. If you're Kamala Harris, what you have to do right now is hang on. You can't be removed from the ticket. You can't find some other place to go. You don't want to go back to California and be a U.S. senator if Newsom were to want to appoint you. You don't want to go on the Supreme Court. You have to hang in until the filing deadlines hit. And then, if you want to turn on Joe, or if something unfortunate were to happen to Joe, then the Democratic Party is stuck with you, and not just as vice president, but as the nominee of the party and the likely next Democratic president of the United States. That would be if the Democrats were to win the election. If you're Kamala Harris and you survive until, let's say, fall of this year or winter, you're gold.
Exactly right. That's why it was so interesting to see Pelosi basically trying to shove her out. I mean, that incredibly lukewarm response from Pelosi when she was asked, I think it was last night on CNN, Anderson Cooper, do you think that she's the best choice? Pelosi's response. By the way, Pelosi, remember, knows her incredibly well. They're both from San Francisco. They're San Francisco politicians. They've known each other for years and years. And so you'd think she would say, yeah, of course, she's great. No, she didn't say that. She said, well, Joe thinks she is. I mean, it's just hilarious what a obvious dig that was at her. So I do think they are trying to somehow they are trying to maneuver things so that, exactly as you said, before the deadlines, they can get both of them out there, out of the whole situation. And I think that in a way, if you were being really calculating and ruthless, you'd probably say it's more important to dump Kamala, if you can, than Biden, because in the situation where she's even less popular and she's the person everyone keeps going, as Nikki Haley keeps making the point, you're really voting for her because the idea that he's going to stay there for 4 years, I mean, no one really believes that. And so that's this but then you come back to the point that the View were discussing. Well, how do you dump her and you get another black woman, and then that's a whole mess because, as she says, that looks like it's just tokenism, but it was tokenism in the first place. So on and on you go, round and round. This is why they're all sitting there and they can't move, because there are no good options.
You referenced Nancy Pelosi on Anderson Cooper. We have the clip. Let's listen.
Is President Kamala Harris the best running mate for this president?
He thinks so, and that's what matters. And by the way,
do you think so?
She's very politically astute. I don't think people give her enough credit. She's, of course, values-based, consistent with the president's values and the rest. And people don't understand, she's politically astute. Why would she be vice president if she were not? But when she was running for attorney general in California, she had 6% in the polls. 6% in the polls. And she politically astutely made her case about why she would be good, did her politics, and became attorney general. So people shouldn't underestimate what Kamala Harris brings to the table.
But do you think she is the best running mate, though?
She's the vice president of the United States. So when people say to me, well, why isn't she doing this or that? I said, because she's the vice president. That's the job description. You don't do that much. You're a source of strength, inspiration, intellectual resource, and the rest. I think she's represented our country very well at home and abroad.
That's not exactly a glowing endorsement.
It's not a glowing endorsement. She literally couldn't bring herself to say that she thought she was the best choice. And do you think she's trolling us where she says she's a source of strength, inspiration, and intellectual whatever it was? I mean, come on. She knows how she said that with a straight face. Absolutely brilliant. Honestly, it's fun to watch this, I've got to say.
Well, and here's another wrinkle to this story. It drives Kamala Harris absolutely crazy when she believes Democrats aren't giving her a full-throttled endorsement and talking about all the great things that she thinks that she's doing. In fact, there was a piece in the Los Angeles Times that came out that was written by George Skelton that suggested that Gavin Newsom could solve all of Joe's problems by nominating Kamala Harris to be U.S. Senator from California if Dianne Feinstein were to step down. That gets Kamala out of the way. That fulfills his promise to nominate a black woman, and it gives Joe an opportunity for a redo for his vice president. She was so furious that the L.A. Times printed that her office was offering up her press secretary to the California media to go after that piece and to put her point of view out there. She was that upset at what happened. She follows these things very closely, and anytime she thinks she gets dissed, there's hell to pay. I don't know if she can do anything to Nancy Pelosi, but my guess is Nancy Pelosi is on her list today.
Of course she is. I mean, she cannot. She's so thin-skinned. And it's because she's got nothing substantive, Kamala Harris, to point to as an accomplishment or result of any kind. And so all she's got is this obsessive watching of who's the latest person to slight her in any kind of way. That's all that there is. And she's all the stories coming out, these books that are written about the Biden presidency, just this latest one. It's all about this kind of stuff and what people think of her and who thinks this of her and who thinks that and what kind of image she had. Not about substance. There was some story about her arguing with the White House about about her office and how it should be set up, and Kamala Harris was saying, "Well, I don't want to be just about women's issues or race or whatever, and we don't want to all be about that." But then she insists that her office is run by a woman and all the staffers are black. I mean, it's just she's such a kind of hilariously incoherent mess of a politician. And I've said this before. It's actually the sadness in a way is that it was all self-inflicted, because I think the problem is at her heart she really does know who she is and what she's all about, which is a pretty moderate Democrat. When she was Attorney General, she bragged about being tough on crime. When she was DA in San Francisco, she introduced a policy to actually prosecute parents who didn't send their kids to school, who allowed their kids to be truant. That's who she is. But she knows that just doesn't play in today's far left controlled Democrat Party. You can't. You've got to bend the knee to the woke activists and the government unions who are themselves controlled by woke activists. And so that's why she's so completely lost. She can't be herself, because that doesn't work in today's Democratic Party. And as a result of it, she's just all over the place.
We're speaking with Steve Hilton, who you can follow on Twitter at Steve Hilton X. Steve, you recently wrote a piece about California's housing mess in my paper, the Orange County Register. Can you tell us what you found?
So the thing that is so important for everyone to understand is that when we talk about these other issues, when we talk about the cost of living in California or homelessness or whatever, at the heart of so many of these other problems is a housing crisis. We have the highest housing costs in America and the lowest home ownership. It's impossible for anyone to get on the housing ladder. If you can rent, it's incredibly expensive. It's a huge proportion of your budget. It's the number one reason people are leaving the state. And it's affecting individuals, obviously. It's affecting businesses. There's nowhere for their workforce to live. That's another reason they're leaving. Families are annoyed about it, upset. Parents look and see that their kids can't afford to stay in California and are leaving. So it's a really big issue. And as with so much else in California, it is totally self-inflicted. And the two big things that I came across when we've been researching this for the last few months, actually, in developing a policy to fix it. You've got these ridiculous taxes and regulations, as on so many other things. The first on the taxes, they call it impact fees. These are fees charged for building a house or an apartment. And it used to be, a couple of grand to get a permit or something. They've gone completely off the charts. San Francisco, $300,000 per apartment. That's not the labor or the materials cost or the land. That's just the tax, basically, a tax on house building. It's typical to see these fees across the state, $200,000, $150,000, enormous amounts, just straight up paid by the people who are building the houses. And, of course, they pass the cost on to the person who's going to buy the house. That's why our house, it's a bit like the gas tax. It's just a completely unnecessary inflation of the cost. So that's the first thing. The second thing is it's so expensive to build because it takes so long because everything is blocked by the environmental regulations. CEQA, those people might be following that, the California Environmental Quality Act, passed originally in 1970, signed by Governor Reagan. It was never even intended to cover housing. It was supposed to be for big government infrastructure projects. Now it's being used to block housing being built in all those places where people want to build housing, particularly in the Central Valley. I've been to Fresno a lot in this process, the San Bernardino counties, Riverside, and so on. That people are desperate to build. There are 1 million homes that have been approved by local government. They comply with all the environmental laws. They've gone through all the zoning process and the planning process, all approved, ready to go, 1 million of them, and they're blocked by lawsuits, but these junk lawsuits filed under this environmental law. So what we're going to do, my organization Golden Together has developed it, and now we've set up a committee. We filed a ballot initiative, a statewide ballot initiative for next year, for 2024, that will get rid of these two main barriers to housing affordability in California. It's called the California Home Ownership Affordability Act, and we're just at the beginning of the process. We've got to qualify, gather the signatures, get it on the ballot. But I think there's going to be huge support because people are sick of this, the massive cost of owning or renting a home in California, and we've got to do something about it.
And here's something else to think about. When it costs a fortune to build anything in California, not only does it increase the cost of housing, but what it ultimately ends up doing is making your home uninsurable, too. Because if your home is damaged in a fire, if it's damaged in a flood, if it's damaged in a mudslide, whatever the case may be, it costs the insurance company so much money to fix whatever is damaged that they can't make any money off of your policy, which is one of the reasons that they're all pulling out of the state. Steve, I got to run. Thank you so much for stopping by. Always
Great
a pleasure.
to be with you, John.
Likewise. And you can find Steve online at goldentogether.com and follow him on Twitter at Steve Hilton X. Steve Hilton, everyone. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydontlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydontlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, if you want to go back and let's say you missed the first hour, but you have time later on this evening and you want to find out what you missed out on, that's easy to do.
That's right. Go to KABC.com, click on podcasts, go to the Apple Podcasts app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes. You can search for The John Phillips Show on YouTube as well. As soon as I post the 12 o'clock hour, you'll be able to hear it and find all of the amazing, incredible stories of the life of one Joe Biden.
Quite frankly.
And Randy, tomorrow we're going to be in Century City.
That's right. This show is going on the road. Tomorrow from noon to 3, catch John Phillips and me, Randy Wang, at the Gelson's in Century City. Gelson's Century City and the Westfield Shopping Center has their own wine bar. We're going to be down there, so come on down, have lunch with us. They've got a fantastic menu. I hear the burger is incredible. They've got $2 off flights, $2 off sandwiches. Go enjoy yourself with us. It's Jimmy Buffett Friday. We're going to have a great time. There's going to be some giveaways, some surprise guests, but make sure you come on down, take a picture, say hi. We would love to see everybody there. That's the Gelson's in Century City tomorrow from noon to 3.
In the meantime, what do you say we make a couple of listeners very happy?
Well, yes, let's do that right now. 790 KABC welcomes Chance the Rapper. It's Acid Rap, the 10-year anniversary show at the Kia Forum on September 21st. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. But right now, call in number 9 at 1-888-790-5222. Gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by Live Nation. Good luck dialing.
It's 1:40 on this Throwback Thursday, Songs About Food edition of the John Phillips Show.
And if you drink as much as Dean Martin, you're going to need some food.
Apparently, he used to go to the Hamburger Hamlet up near Sunset pretty regularly.
Oh, wow.
I knew people who would go in there, and he would have the same thing every time he would go. He would have, and he wasn't drinking heavily then, and I don't know if it was because he was advanced in age or he had health problems or what, but he'd have Angel Hair Pomodoro, and he'd have a J&B on the rocks.
Oh, wow.
That was what he ordered.
Didn't get that onion fondue, huh?
Nope. 800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Well, one of the byproducts of the shutdown is that a lot of people, I would assume, probably decided to pull their kids out of expensive colleges. If your kid is going to, let's say, USC or Pepperdine or any university here in California that costs a fortune because they want that college experience, are you going to pay a premium for them to sit in your house and take their classes on the computer? Probably not. I would imagine that a lot of people did that, and because of that, the budgets for colleges up and down the state are blown. In addition to that, we have inflation that is killing people, and we have competition. Now you can take classes online, so you don't have to take a class from a school that is physically near you. You can find one of these online universities or a university in another state that is offering a degree for a lesser price than whatever your neighborhood university is.
And we're talking legit ones, not University of Phoenix.
That's right. So there's competition that now exists. So because of that, these colleges and universities are trying to figure out what to do with their budget holes. And at the California State University system, they decided they're going to jack up tuition.
6% a year for the next 5 years.
And you notice, by the way, you can tell you live in a one-party state because everyone is saying it's a 6% raise, not a 30% raise. But if it's 6% annually over 5 years, that's a 30% raise. But no one wants to cross Gavin Newsom, so they're saying 6% instead of 30%.
And in fact, if it's compounded annually like that, the 6% next year is based on the already raised amount, so it's even higher than that.
I get my favorite dish, fish, hold tight.
It's 1:48 on McIntyre in the Morning. Doug McIntyre and Rob Marinko here with you until 9 o'clock in the morning. 800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222.
Accurate.
All right, let's get more details on this college tuition fee hike going on over at Cal State.
And with that, we've got the best in the business. Fox 11 said Ed Laskos to get the bottom of it.
Enough already. Board of Trustees saying they really had no choice. They voted to hike the tuition, saying they had...
How about they could have taken a pay cut?
That's never going to happen.
Hike the tuition, saying they had to do something to deal with what they call a severe financial crisis. The thing is, tonight there's growing concern here on campus and all the other campuses that deal with this across the state that these students now facing the higher tuition could be dealing with a financial crisis of their own. Watch. CSU Long Beach, where some students are reeling after the tuition hike.
Yeah. I love how even when it's a story like this, he covers it like a crime story.
Well, from their point of view, it is.
CSU Long Beach.
It's highway robbery.
CSU Long Beach, where some students are reeling after the tuition hike.
Yeah, it's very disappointing.
Another job, you got to find the money somewhere.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, most of the students on this campus are working at least one job.
I don't even know if they know, but I mean, the way college is, it's just more expensive every year anyway. Not surprised.
These kids sound so beaten down.
Wouldn't you? They get attacked at a McDonald's, no one cares. They just videotape it and shame them at school.
It's the fallout from the controversial vote by the university's Board of Trustees.
Trustee Lopez. Yes. Trustee McGrory.
Yes.
What do you think they make?
Well, they're all political appointees. So to get that job, you already have to be rich, or he has to owe you a favor. By he, I mean Gavin Newsom.
It's a 15-5 vote to increase tuition, all to ease what's being called a severe financial crisis.
We've kicked the can down the road too many times, and we've got to look at the...
Wait, there's a bucket full of cliches.
He could be the attorney general.
Well, yes, in case you needed a refresher.
Every type of leadership is about meeting the moment and rising to the occasion, and this is what's required. And so we're stepping up and getting it done.
I hope he runs for governor.
We've kicked the can down the road too many times, and we've got to look at this issue in terms of our overall budget. We've only had one increase in tuition in 12 years. That's not a model. That's not a business model that's going to work long term. It's just not.
It's weird to hear a public state college be talked about as a business model.
Well, from their point of view, that's exactly what they are.
That's not a model. That's not a business model that's going to work long term. It's just not sustainable.
The tuition hike comes despite wide opposition, protests by students here in Long Beach and the other 22 state campuses.
The amount of money it's going to have to take to pay off these loans, these debts, is extraordinary, and all we want is an affordable university system.
An affordable university system, he says, but some feel it is anything but affordable with these new higher tuitions.
He is just the best.
Can't beat an Ed Lascos report.
To us as students, that is a lot of money.
We're not going to be able to afford to continue to go to the CSU if this continues.
It will continue with an annual 6% increase over the next 5 years. Let's crunch the numbers a bit. The current undergraduate tuition stands now at $5,742, but it will increase to just over $6,000 in the next school year. And check this, jump to more than $7,600 in 2028.
You know, we have plenty of people listening that remember when it was $500.
I think it was when I went to Cal State Fullerton, I want to say it was under $2,000.
And that wasn't that long ago.
No.
That's more than a $2,000 hike over 5 years. It seems to be the new high price for higher education.
I'm an art graduate student, and the art buildings are pretty decrepit on this campus, so it's kind of incredible that they would raise tuition when it's already pretty unacceptable conditions.
It's something that had to come about. It wasn't something that was just, blatantly forced. Every business, is struggling. Students are struggling as well.
Those colleges are just struggling to turn a profit.
They talk about them like it's a factory.
Churning out those degrees. That's all we got.
All right. So I have mixed feelings on this one. First and foremost, you have to look at the politics of this. Right now, Democrats in Washington, D.C. want to forgive student loan debt because they say that the colleges and universities are just charging too much. And because of that, they have to forgive the debt. If that's the position of the Democratic Party, and you're the Democratic governor of California, and your administration and your Cal State University Board of Trustees raise tuition, that position doesn't fit with where your party is nationally. That puts you on the outside. And don't for 1 second think that this won't come up in a Democratic primary for president. They will beat him over the head with this. That being said, it's what, $6,000 a year now for tuition?
Just about. And it's going to go up to $7,200.
Okay. That's still an unbelievable deal for a bachelor's degree. It just is. You look at what these private colleges are charging. Look at USC or Pepperdine or Claremont or any of them. And what Cal State is charging is a fraction of what the private universities and colleges are charging. And when you're talking about college tuition, what you're really talking about is a user fee. It's something that the public pays for, but certain people benefit from it disproportionately. If you get a highly subsidized college degree, you are going to be the one that benefits from that more than anyone else in the state of California. It's like how we charge you to park if you go to a state beach or you go to a state park. Since you're the one that's using it, you should have to pay more for its upkeep than the people who don't use it. It's why the LA City golf courses charge green fees for people who use the golf course. If you use it, you benefit from it, so you should have to pay more than the people who don't golf. That's just how it works. That being said, this is going to be bad news for Gavin Newsom because now he's going to end up with a bunch of pissed off students.
Because we chose to screw you.